everybody, welcome back to the Dev Show. I'm super excited today to be bringing a guest back on the show that we've had on about a year ago. You know him from Spider-Man. "You're out, Norman," is his famous line in Spider-Man 1.
You're out, Norman.
I'm super excited to be welcoming a now friend of the show, Jack Betts, also known as Hunt Powers.
And I'm in $500,000!
Let's give him a call, shall we?
Hello.
Hi, Jack. This is Devin.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Okay.
Jack, it's a pleasure to have you here on the Dev Show again. It's been a year since we last spoke. How are you?
I'm terrific. By terrific, I mean I'm saying creative.
Absolutely. That's what you told me about a year ago, was that creativity is your lifeline, and that still applies, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, creativity is your lifeline, and without that, one is just wandering through life without any purpose, you know. And I'm blessed that I've had this insatiable curiosity about acting and curiosity about myself and everything since I was 10 years old. Find out, you know, you got to jump in the water to find out how deep it is, and I did when I was 10 years old.
And you're still in that water.
Where you are now in your life.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
And that's fantastic.
I don't know that word retirement. I don't know what the hell that means. Retire from what? Retire from life? I don't think so.
Right.
Right.
So our interview did pretty well when we did it last year. Obviously, we were in quite a unique situation, and through all of that, I had the opportunity and fortune of speaking with like Carol Burnett, Ed Asner, who else? Connie Francis.
I knew Ed Asner just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Carol Burnett is one of my great idols. Absolutely extraordinary. When you look at the shows that she did, one show a week, the talent that woman had in dancing and acting and just talking to people, and she was extraordinary. And she still is, you know. But she was absolutely extraordinary example of the possibility of what you can do. She did everything. She tried everything, and it all worked. Plus the fact she had an extraordinary sense of humor, and somehow in this business, I think you need that. You got to sometimes laugh at yourself. Be willing to.
I agree with you. So as I did these interviews, and I learned so many different things about being an interviewer and about being an actor. I learned different things from different careers the more people that I talk to. And in the time that I've been doing it, I've thought of so many different questions that, you know, I wish I would have asked Jack that. I wish I would have asked Hunt that. So I'm glad that we're able to do this and catch up.
Yes, it's interesting that you just used the word interview, because when you think about it, what the actor is doing is he's interviewing his life. And you can quote me on that. I think it's a very good example. We're interviewing ourselves to see, can we do this? And I've always somehow found a way to say, just do it. That was Marty Landau, was a very dear close friend of mine, and that was his philosophy of life. Just do it.
Right.
Yeah, great sense of humor.
So last time we talked, you were writing a play, and I was wondering how that turned out. Where are you in that process?
Well, look, I'm working on a movie, which is we're getting ready to talk about casting and about production and so forth. But it comes from my play that I did called It Goes Like This. I did this play about 7 or 8 years ago here in Hollywood. I've done about 5 of my plays here in Hollywood. I have 5 of my plays produced. But this one is very, very special. And it was called It Goes Like This. And now I've written it into a movie script. And I have an extraordinary director who's in love with it. And we're working on getting into production. There's so much I can tell you and so much I can't tell you, you know.
Yeah, of course.
And I've changed the name of It Goes Like This. And it's now a movie, and I can't tell you the title either because I don't want to lose the title.
That's okay.
You know. But we're my director just came back from Prague. He was directing a movie in Prague, and he just got back, and we are going to start having just a reading of the screenplay, and then start with the casting and raising the money. But he's very excited about it. I'm very excited about it. He's extremely talented, and I'm just looking forward. That's keeping me going.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your career. We did touch on it briefly, but I was wondering if I could ask you more about how you started the different aspects of your career, because there are many, right? You did music as well as theater, as well as writing and film.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I started out when I was 10 years old, when my mother decided to move us out of Jersey City and drive down to Miami, Florida. And that changed my entire life. And I was there, 10 years old, and I auditioned for a radio show, WIOD, in Miami, for a talent contest. And I sang a song called Green Eyes. And I sang it in Spanish. And I won first prize, $25. And at that particular time, the radio shows had audiences in them. So I had wonderful applause. And I sure like the sound of that applause. And then I began doing more singing. And because during that time, it was during World War I, not World War I, not World War I, thank you very much, World War II. And there were a lot of, Miami, Florida was a military base for all of the armed forces, the Navy, the Army, the Marines, and so forth. So it was filled with the military. And they had a lot of clubs there, USO clubs. And my sister and my mother would go and dance with the guys, and I would go and sing. And I used to sing at a lot of these USO shows. So I was doing my singing. And that's when it really all sort of began to blossom for me, how I loved that applause and loved the audience, the attention of the audience.
And then you kind of navigated your way through music and discovered theater as well, right?
Well, yes, when I got into school, into high school, I began acting, taking the drama courses and acting in the plays at the University at Miami Senior High School. And then when I went on to University of Miami, where I graduated, I got into the drama department there as well. And as a matter of fact, we did a wonderful production of Light Up the Sky. And it was so well received because it was the Ring Theater, which was very, very popular in Miami, Florida, aside from the fact that it was the university. It was a very, very commercial theater. And our production of Light Up the Sky was so good that we got an invitation to do it in Havana, Cuba. And they brought the entire company over to Havana, Cuba, and we did Light Up the Sky in Havana, Cuba, which was kind of unusual, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. And that's when I fell in love with Cuba. I went back several times since then, you know, because Miami, Florida, at that time was filled with Cuban people. Because really, from Key West, it was really only 90 miles away on a ferry. And my mother and I used to go over, you know, every once in a while. But I was doing acting in the high school, in the plays there, and then began to do other theater outside of the university, and just become involved with things that were not high school. But the Ring Theater was extremely professional, and it was one of the major theaters in Miami, Florida. So it was not just a university production. It was really like a theater, a regular theater. And we did a lot of plays there.
When you were in theater, did you have a goal in mind where you want to be? I know you ended up playing Dracula at one point.
An Academy Award. That's what I wanted. I wanted an Academy Award to show you how superficial and greedy I was. I wanted an Oscar, and I wanted a Grammy, and I wanted all of the awards. It was a passion. I just had a passion for it, for acting. I knew that I wanted to go to New York, and I managed to, on $54, I managed to make my way to New York City and lived at the YMCA, paying $10 a month, and making the rounds in New York City in 1955, 60, and getting involved in theater right immediately. Once I graduated from the University of Miami, I got out of there and went to New York because it was my dream to be in New York and be on Broadway. And that passion kept me going.
What was your headspace like when you were moving into New York?
I want a job, and I want to be on Broadway. I want to be on stage. I want to be a star. And an example of that is, after I was in New York for quite a while, I went to see a play called Dracula. And when I saw that play, I sat in the last row, in the balcony. And when I saw that play, I said to myself, I'd give anything in the world to play that part, and I am going to play that part. Well, about 6 or 8 or 9 months later, after making the rounds, which is what actors did at that particular time, you make the rounds, you leave your photograph on your resume, and you drop them off at the theater for the stage manager. And I kept going by the Martin Beck Theater and leaving my photograph, and finally I got a call that I could audition for a part in Dracula that was running at the Martin Beck Theater, a big hit. And I managed to do that audition. They liked the audition very much. I was going to be reading for the father, and I read for the father, and I got it. And I said, I don't know how the hell I had such gall to do it. I said, I would like to take the part very much, but only if I could stand by for Dracula. And they were very surprised that I would make that kind of a demand. They thought that, well, just getting the parts you got is enough, And finally, they said, well, yes, we can arrange an audition for you. And so once I got the job of standing by for the father, I did an audition for Dracula. And I auditioned, and I got it. I got to be able to play the father and also stand by for Dracula. And I managed to go on, believe it or not, because one particular night I was home painting my kitchen. At that particular time, all you had to do really was to just phone in, and say, I'm here. And that's all you had to do. You didn't have to go to the theater every night, And this one particular night, I was painting my house, painting my apartment. And I called in, and they said, yes, everything's fine. And about 20 minutes later, I got a call saying, how fast can you get here? And I said, why? They said one word, good evening. And he lost his voice. Because he had been in Cuba for a long time. And he had lost his voice when he came back. He walked on stage, and all of a sudden, he couldn't say the next line. He absolutely choked. And I raced like hell to get there, and I did. And I got to the theater, and there were 1,500 people standing outside, waiting for me to go on. And it was Raul Julia that I stood by for at that time, because Raul Julia had taken over for Frank, and he was playing the lead. And I got there from my apartment on 56th Street. The theater was on 46th Street. I got there, and my God, I don't know how the hell I got there, but I did. And there were 1,500 people waiting out in the street. So in like 20 minutes, I got the makeup, the whole gown, everything, and I was ready to go on, and I was ready, and I did. And that particular time, when you were standing by particularly, you had to do a rehearsal once a week. And
right.
I'd rehearse once a week for the part of Dracula, just in case, you know. And the thing that I didn't get a chance to rehearse was all the trap doors that I had to go through. You know, go down to the basement, go to the other side of the theater, jump in, and all of a sudden I appear in the window or I appear in the door.
Yeah.
The technical part, I never got a chance to rehearse. So when I went on, I must say that the first line he has is "Good evening." He says, you know, that tone of voice, you know, and the audience broke out into immediate applause. They were so glad to have me to be able to see Dracula. And I got every damn line and didn't trip and didn't miss one damn thing. And it was one of the best curtain calls I ever took in my life. It was just fantastic. That was a great experience.
That's so amazing.
My point being is that the actor has to have that kind of crazy foresight and that kind of crazy wish, that kind of desire and that kind of passion to be able to say, I'm going to play that part. And I sat in the back of the theater when I went to see it, and I said that to myself. I'm going to play that part. Now, it took 8 months for me to get the audition, but my point being is that the actor has to want something aside from just, you know, being in the theater. You have to want it with great passion, and I've had that all my life. And part of that is greed and selfishness, because along the way you lose some friends and some people along the way, because what you are doing is more important than a social life and just having fun. And that's been sort of my guideline. I've missed a lot of fun along the way, maybe lost some friends, but I never lost my eyesight for that speck down the road of life that I wanted, you know.
Yeah.
That Academy Award, all that goes with it. It's not just the Academy Award. It's reaching that kind of level in your life where that many people like you. I mean, for example, when I went to they had a film festival in New Mexico about 3 years ago, and what they were saluting was a film that I did in Italy called Sugar Coat, one of my 15 Western films that I did. They were honoring my film at that particular time, and they had the evening. They saw the film. They all liked it, and then they were also giving out awards to other actors for other films that were shown. And then finally on the screen, the MC came out and he said, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the major part of the evening, I'd like to," and all of a sudden on the screen, in huge letters, said Lifetime Achievement Award to Jack Betts. When I saw that, I couldn't believe it. I almost broke out in tears, and everybody stood up and cheered and screamed and everything. And I walked up on stage and accepted the Lifetime Achievement Award.
The recipient of this year's Lifetime Achievement Award, Mr. Jack Betts. Pleasure. Thank you so much for this. I have to tell you something. This is the first award I've ever gotten in my entire life. And how honored I am to be part of the first Borderlands International Film Festival. What an honor.
That was one of the
Phenomenal.
most exciting moments in my life, I think, because you finally say to yourself, I'm going to do it, and I'm damn good. God damn it, they like me. They like me. And I like myself for liking them liking me.
Yeah.
It's an acceptance of self. It's an acceptance of self. And I've accepted that applause and said to myself, yes, I've earned that. I deserve it. I love you all for it. It was a very important moment in my life because my movie is basically about acceptance, self-acceptance. Whether we accept ourselves like we accept friends or other people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go through life not accepting themselves. And that award that I got, when I saw them standing up and yelling and cheering and screaming, I said to myself, yeah, I accept it. I accept myself. I'm good. I'm damn good. And that's not said in the sense of ego, you know what I mean?
I know.
It's said in honesty. So, and I'm also writing my autobiography, you know, which is going on and on and on. It's beginning to bore the hell out of me. Anyway.
Writing the book?
Yeah. About all the experiences I've had, you know, my life in Italy for 7 years, working on 15 Western films and doing a film with Richard Burton during Trotsky and working with Bridget Bardot, you know, and people like that. And being a member of the Actors Studio, being given a personal scholarship by Lee Strasberg, and then auditioning for the Actors Studio itself, and Elia Kazan put me in the lead in Cat in the Hot Tin Roof on the National Company. That came out of my audition.
Wow.
And it's interesting how I auditioned for the Actors Studio, which during the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and still is one of the great institutes in acting. As you know, the Actors Studio, I'm sure you've heard about it.
Yeah.
And I auditioned for that. I was living in New York when I first came to New York after I graduated from the University of Miami about 1954. I was in New York working at a lamp factory making $28 a week. And I met a dear friend of mine in New York. She graduated with me at the University of Miami at the drama department. And she said, oh, Jack, I was wondering if you would help me. I'm auditioning for the Actors Studio, and would you help me with the scene? And I said, sure. What the hell is the Actors Studio? I didn't know what it was. And she said, well, it's a place where all the famous actors go and study. And I said, well, sure, I'll be glad to. So we worked on the scene for 2 or 3 weeks. We went in, did the audition at the Actors Studio, at which Lee Strasberg and Elia Kazan were the judges. And 2 days later, I got a phone call at the factory where I worked. I worked for a lamp company. And it was Lee Strasberg on the phone saying, I saw the audition the other night. Would you like to study with me? And I said, no. Shows you how stupid I was. He said, why? I said, first of all, I can't afford it. And secondly, I don't think anybody can teach anybody how to act. He said, you're wrong about the first, and I'll take care of the second. Come in and see me. And I did. I didn't know who Stanislavski was. I didn't know what the method was, any of it. Anyway, I went in and met him, and he gave me a 3-year scholarship at the Actors Studio. And after that, I auditioned for the Actors Studio itself, because his classes, that was for his private classes, that I got the scholarship. And then I auditioned for the Actors Studio, and that's when Kazan saw me and put me in Cat in the Hot Tin Roof. And they still have it, you know, it's still going. It's going in New York, and they have it out here as well.
Would you mind if we touched on your relationship with Doris Roberts?
She's my best friend. I met Doris at the Actors Studio in 1954, and we became very good friends then. And I loved it because she reminded me of Susan Hayward, who was one of my favorite actresses in the movies. And Doris and I became good friends. And then she moved out here to California because she got a wonderful commercial, and we moved to California and became very close friends with Carol Burnett and began doing parts on television shows, you know. And then she bought a beautiful home out here, and I was still living in New York. And I think in the late 70s or beginning of the 80s, she bought a beautiful home here in California. I had my own beautiful apartment in New York City, which I loved. And eventually I came out here to do a pilot. The pilot I came out to audition for at 20th Century Fox. I didn't get. But I got in touch with Doris again, and we began going out and having dinner and so forth. And then I decided I was going to stay out here and rent my apartment in New York. And I did. And Doris finally said, you know, I have an entire apartment downstairs in the bottom of my house, Chuck. You know, why don't you think about moving in? And I thought, my God, I can't do that. I said, well, yeah, I could, Doris. I said, only under one condition, that you let me pay the rent. And she said, no, absolutely not. I said, well, I can't do that. She said, oh, yes, you can. You know, it's a wonderful apartment. The swimming pool is right outside your door and everything. And it was a great apartment downstairs. And that was in 1988 that I moved into her house. And she would never accept anything from me. It's incredible. She absolutely refused. But Doris and I were the best friends to the very end. We had wonderful times together, my God. I used to be her escort all the time, going to all these parties and things at the Beverly Hills Hotel and everything. And one of the great moments I had was when we both met Buzz Aldrin. And I can't believe that I shook hands with the man. I shook hands with the man who walked on the moon. I couldn't believe it. I said, "Can I just give you a hug?" And he was so nice about it. And I can't believe that I hugged and shook the hands of the man who walked on the moon. That was probably one of the most exciting things in my life. I was fascinated by that. Anyway, Doris and I had wonderful parties that we went to, and just we had a great time. We really did. She had a great sense of humor and very supportive of me, and you know, she was wonderful.
Yeah, it's good to have a good friend.
Oh God, yeah. She was my lifelong friend. She really was.
Did she direct your play?
A few.
Yes.
She did.
Screen Test Take One. Yes, she did, and was very successful. And we had a ball directing that. We really did. Absolutely wonderful. Great working with her. And then I did her show, Everybody Loves Raymond. I was on that a couple of times. She ended up winning 5 Emmys or 6 Emmys. You know.
Yeah.
For doing that show. She was.
Her performance is fantastic.
Oh God, funny as hell. But she was in real life. You know.
I can imagine, yeah. And then last couple things I want to touch on is, of course, film. And we, in our previous interview, discussed your remarkable career in Westerns with Franco Giraldi. Do you ever watch your Westerns?
Sometimes I do, yes. Sometimes I do. But the thing that's interesting about that, I was working with Paul Conan was my agent at that particular time, 1969. And he called me and he said, I was on my way home and I thought I'd call him. And of course that was the day they didn't have cell phones, so I had to get out and stop in Schwab's, which was the bottom of Crescent Heights and Laurel Canyon. And I said, Paul, and just calling to see if anything's going on. He said, well, there's a director in from Italy, and he's been in New York for 3 weeks, and he hasn't been able to find anybody for his films. If you want to come in to meet him. I said, my God, yes. I was there in 20 minutes. And in the meantime, he had shown him a couple of my television shows, you know. And I met this Franco Giraldi, and he couldn't have been nicer. And he said to me, Mr. Best, do you ride the horse? And I said, oh, yes, I've been doing that for years. A friend of mine works at a ranch. I'd never been on a horse in my life, ever.
Right.
And he said, and do you shoot the gun? I said, oh, Franco, as a matter of fact, last week I won the first prize in sharpshooting contest over in the valley. I had never had a gun in my hand, ever, you know?
Yeah.
And so how I got that job is amazing. He said, well, I've seen your book. He said, would you like to come to Italy and do a Western film called Sugarcoat? And I said, I would like very much to, Mr. Geraldine. He said, very good. And I will see you in Italy in 3 weeks in Cinecittà. And I can't believe it. Now, mind you, I had no experience at all on horses. Nothing. Absolutely. But a friend of mine did work at John Wayne's ranch. And he was around horses all the time. So I called him up and I said, Frank, you've got to teach me how to ride a fucking horse and shoot a gun. I'm going to be doing a Western film in Italy. Well, in 3 weeks, he taught me how to ride and how to shoot a gun. And I arrived at Cinecittà. And at that time I was working also to make some money on the side. I was working for a very famous public relations lady named Helen Ferguson, who was a public relations person for Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor and Loretta Young. And I was working for her. And she said, oh, she was so glad that I got this job. She said, Jack, you can't go to Italy with the name of Jack Betts. And I said, why not? She said, how do you say, what are they going to call you, Giacomo Betts? You can't. You got to have another name. So she did some researching in my family background. And she found Powers on one side of the family and Huntington on the distaff side of the family. And she put them together and she came up with the name of Hunt Powers. And I said, oh, God, that's great. So I arrived in Italy as Hunt Powers, not as Jack Betts. And that was the beginning of my career. And I did the fighting and how I did all of that amazes me when I think back on it. When I look at the film and I think, that's damn good. And I didn't know, I mean, I had theater training. I had never done any boxing or punching somebody in the mouth and kicking them in the ass and throwing them across the room. And it was the fights we did were quite violent. And in those Western films, they really were. And how I did it, to this day, I don't know. I just did it. It's like Marty Landau said, just do it.
Yeah.
You know, grab this guy's neck and punch him in the mouth. Don't punch him, actually, Obviously, I knew how to avoid that.
Did he hurt you, huh?
That's how I did it. I did I did all the horses things, and it was so funny because I had a manager that I took with me, a very dear friend of mine named Chet Foley. And I said, Chet, he was in insurance, and I said, would you like to go to Italy with me and be my manager? He said, oh, sure, that'd be great. So he handled all the things for me, quite frankly, and everybody was crazy about it. But it came the day that I had been working for a couple of weeks in Rome, and we had to go to Spain to start working on the hills and the mountains and the horse and everything. And we went to Spain, a little town called Almeria, which is at the southern part of Spain. And that's where they had the villages that looked exactly like Arizona. You'd swear you were in America. They had this one little village built. And it was just incredible what they had done. And now he said, today you must choose the horse that you want to use for the rest of the movie. And I thought, meantime, they had about 25 horses all lined up. And the entire crew and the other actors were all there. And he said, I said, Frank, do you want me to choose the horse? He said, oh, it's very important that you have your own horse, Mr. Powers. And so I turned to Chet and I said, Chet, I don't know how to choose a fucking horse. He said, well, Jack, you better go over and do it. So I went over to all these horses lined up, and they all looked alike. They're all horses. I mean, I said, what did I know? And so I opened one's mouth or something like that and so forth. And I said, I got to look like I know what I'm doing, Chet. He said, well, that's what you're doing. A good job of it. And so finally I picked up one horse, and there was something about it. And I said, oh, Franco, this is the one. This is the horse that's perfect. And he said, you want that one, Hunt? And I said, yeah, definitely. And he said, all the guys in the crew and all the butch extra guys, all the cowboys and everything else said, oh, no, you don't want that one, Mr. Powers. You don't want that one, Mr. Powers. I said, why? He said, that's the oldest one in the whole group. I couldn't believe it. I said, there's something about this horse, Franco, that I think is right. Well, it turned out that horse was absolutely fantastic. Did all the things it was supposed to do. It was wonderful for me. And the name of the horse I remember to this day. His name was Momerto. And Momerto became Momerto. Yeah. And he became the sort of sign for the entire company. Everybody was crazy. They would bring him carrots in the morning or apples or whatever. Everybody loved him. And I had a great time doing that. And there came times where Franco, the director, would say, okay, now, Hunt, what I want you to do is to take the horse and ride over to the edge of the hill. And when I looked down at the bottom of the hill, it was like, 700 or almost 1,000 feet below me. And I'm on the horse. And I said, Franco, I have to tell you something. In America, we have something called stuntmen who do these kind of things you're asking me to do so that the actor doesn't get hurt. And he said, oh, okay, you worry about that. I said, it's very important because if something should happen to me, the picture's over, So they got the stuntman to do it. They didn't, because the Italians at that time, they just loved doing the moves. They would do anything. He said, jump off the roof, do this. They just jumped in and did it. Their enthusiasm and their passion for acting was just extraordinary. I learned a lot from them. I really did. And
sure.
Doing a lot of that stuff became very. And as a matter of fact, after I don't know, like the fourth or fifth picture we did, we had a scene in a bakery, and it was I was the hero in the film, obviously, and I had to do a lot of fighting in this particular scene. And there was a knock at the door, and I opened the door, and I'm supposed to grab this guy and punch him in the face and push him and everything. And it was like 2:00 in the morning.
Yep.
And I said, Franco, I think I'm a little bit tired. Maybe can we do this tomorrow? He said, oh, but Hunt. He said, well, I just have a feeling it's going to be very good if we do it now so we can move to the next location. I said, well, okay, let's do it. And so we did. I opened the door, I grabbed this guy, moved him, punched the hell out of him, and shoved his head in a big vat of dough. And when I lifted him back up, there was blood streaming down his face. And I thought, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. What I had done, actually, I had I guess I had hit him, and I didn't realize it. But immediately they got the car, and we had to take him to the hospital. It turned out that I had sprained his nose, almost broken his nose.
Yeah.
And the next day, in the Madrid paper, it said, American actor knocks out kickbox champion of Spain. He was a kickbox champion. And he only worked in movies because he was a friend of Franco, the director, and he liked doing it. He wasn't an actor. But
right.
Also, when I had done one, I was in the hospital with him, and I said, are you sure? He said, right there. He said, fine. He said, let me look at your hand. I said, no, I'm fine. He said, no, you're not fine. You've broken your finger there. So I had broken my finger, and I had to they had to put a cast on it. So for 2.5 weeks, I had to sort of hide the fact that my hand was in a cast while I'm doing all this shooting and fighting. Those are some of the crazy things that happened, But they were all wonderful experience working in Italy with all those actors because they loved acting. They loved being part of the production, and they would do anything. Mm-hmm. And it was an extraordinary experience learning how the Italian people, they live for the moment. This
Yeah.
moment is the most important thing in their life. I don't know what's going to happen when you go home, but all I know is that I love you now, and that's the most important. And that's the way they live. They live for the moment, and I learned a lot from them. I really did. It was an incredible experience. So I had 6.5 years of that, and 15 films.
It sounds like it was an incredible experience.
What were your
It was
emotions like?
fabulous.
What were your emotions like when you had to return home?
Well, it was very difficult because, my dear friend Jimmy Coco was doing a film called Man of La Mancha with Peter O'Toole and Sophia Loren. And he came over to Italy, and we had a lot of fun together. And he said, I'll tell you something. This is an incredible place, and if you don't go home, Jack, you'll never go. Because he wanted to buy property and move there. And he was right. After being there for 6.5 years, I really didn't want to go home. But I knew that I had to, because in a way, the whole Italian Western thing had run its course, and I had to get back to America, to get back on American television. Because the thing that Chet found out is that the hotel next to mine was Clint Eastwood. And he would go out, I'd see him in the morning and wave to him, and he'd go up to his mountain and do his Western, and I'd go up to my mountain and do my Western. Well, Chet, my manager, found out that he got, his films had international distribution all over the world. My films were distributed all over the world except Canada and America. And when Chet found that out, I couldn't believe it, could not believe it. So I was a huge star in France, in Paris, in Germany, and all those places, incredible. But my films never got distributed in America. And that's what really made Clint Eastwood a star, was doing those films. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that really infuriated both Chet and I, that the contract that my agent made was not a good contract in that sense,
No, but like you said, the living for the now and the moment. You have so many stories to reminisce on now.
Oh my God, yes.
Last time we did talk a little bit about your experience on Spider-Man, and now I don't know if you know this or not, but did you know that they're bringing back all of the original characters and actors? Like Willem Dafoe he's back as the Green Goblin again.
Oh, really? Oh, I loved working with him. He was wonderful. Because the one I think that Spider-Man we did was the best one. And he's wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. So talented. And a great guy. Loved working with him. Loved it.
The question that I have been asking is, oh, come on, you have to get Jack back in Spider-Man.
Jack, do you know that...
Do you know that millions upon millions of people know who you are from Spider-Man?
And I'm not aware that it's that well known, but
it's all over the world.
That's nice to know. That's nice to know.
I was going to say, on behalf of my generation, and I'm 18 now, Spider-Man was fantastic, and I want you to know that from me that we all know who you are, and we all love it.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, the famous line, "You're out, Norman."
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. We did that take at the table with the other 12 men, or I don't know, 10 or 12, something like that. I did that same line for about 4.5 hours, and while they did the close-ups on all the other men. And finally, when it came to do my close-up, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I turned to the director and I said, "Hey, would you mind if I try something with just a little more, maybe a little slight bit of humor to it?" He said, "Sure, try what you want, Jack." And he sat down right at the floor next to me while they did my close-up, and that's when I said, "You're fired," But the way I did it was different than the way I had done it all day long, And that little bit, he was willing to let me do anything I wanted,
Jack, Hunt Power.
Yes.
Oh, that's so.
Yes.
I'm so happy that you decided to join me.
My pleasure. Really, my pleasure. Do you ever get out to California?
I have never been to California.
Wow. That's a whole different world out here. Where are you located?
I'm in Niagara Falls, Canada.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. And what
The
about
other
New
side of
York?
the
Do you ever
rock.
go to New York? Yeah. Do you
I've
ever
never
go to
been
New York?
to New York.
Wow. Deb, you got to get out and see the world.
I know. There are a lot of places that I'm longing to see, Jack.
Yeah. No, New York is New York and California are sort of major spots in America that one shouldn't miss because of what they are and the history behind them. Those two states, particularly, Anyway, it was great talking with you. I wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you.
And stay in touch.
I will. I would love to meet you one day.
Okay, definitely. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Jack. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.